Hey guys, Aaron McGinnis here from BROWNCROFT Community Church coming at you today. Just want to give you a little heads up. My cat is doing a really weird, I don't know if he's trying to be a model or, Zuko, what you doing there, boy? Anyways, so excited to be with you guys today. I'm going to head outside because it's beautiful out. Do the little Corona grab here. You don't want to touch anything with your actual hands here in an apartment complex. Got another one. But anyways, super excited to be with you guys. You guys have been doing some challenges this week, tuning in, doing some great stuff. Some things like Josh's challenge of chiming in and saying, what are you missing this year? What do you miss in past years? Things that have changed your life about Flower City Work Camp. Let me get some more sun. Ooh, too much sun. Too much. Two, we saw a challenge where you got to write letters to Heritage Christian Services, and that was awesome as well. DL came in hot with a nice challenge of what was it, DL? I got it. Ninja serving. Yes, you guys are sending in your videos of you guys ninja serving your families and those around you. Very cool. Honestly, I think some of you just did your chores and then put the hashtag Flower City 2020 on it. That's just my opinion. But anyways, we're going to move forward today, and we're going to hear from a great guy. His name is John IACUCCI. He's going to be bringing the word today for your morning devotional this Wednesday. I'm very excited to have him talk because those of you who know him from Calvary Assembly, he's a good dude. I've heard he can do a handstand for over a minute straight. I heard he always recycles, especially paper. So he's a good guy, great dude. Let's hear from him. Tune in. Here we go.
Good morning, Flower City Work Camp. My name's John, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm a youth leader over at Calvary Assembly in Chilai. I'm so honored to be here with you this morning, talking about Jesus, talking about serving, and being with you even virtually during this time. I wanted to first remind you that you got a challenge at the beginning of this week, and today is the day. So if you have not submitted a video yet of yourself serving or sharing why you love Flower City Work Camp and your story with it, today is the day you need to turn that in. So please get that done and turn it in as soon as possible. So yesterday or the day before that, you got a challenge to serve your parents in a way that they wouldn't be expecting. And so this morning we're going to talk about a story from the Bible of someone who served their parents in an unexpected way and the crazy story that came as a result of that. So we're going to be in the book of Ruth. It's in the Old Testament, and it's a story about a woman named Naomi and another woman named Ruth in the relationship that they have. So I'm going to set the scene for you. So you have your protagonist of the story, and her name is Naomi. And she lives in Bethlehem, which is the same city where Jesus will eventually be born thousands of years later. And that's not a coincidence, so stay with me. So Naomi is married to a man named Elimelech, and they have two sons. And at this time, there's a famine in Bethlehem in Judah where they live. And so they go to live in a place called Moab where there's food. And when they get there, Elimelech, Naomi's husband, dies, kicks the bucket. So now Naomi becomes a single mother to two sons. And her sons grow up and they're there for 10 years and they get married to women who live in Moab. Their names are Ruth and Orpah. And then after 10 years, both of Naomi's sons also die. So now Naomi has no husband and she has no sons, but she has these two daughter-in-laws. And so now here's where the story gets interesting. Naomi decides to go back to Bethlehem because the famine is over, but she tells her daughter-in-laws to go home and to find new husbands. And the reason that she does that is because in their culture, marital status was an important thing, particularly for women. And so to be a single woman, you were essentially committing to live your life in poverty. And so Naomi, not wanting that for her two daughter-in-laws, tells them to go back to Moab and to find new husbands so that they can find prosperous lives. And so this is what it says in Ruth chapter 1, starting in verse 8. It says, Naomi said to her two daughter-in-laws, go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show you kindness as you have shown kindness to your dead husbands and to me. May the Lord grant that each of you find rest in the home of another husband. And she kissed them goodbye, and they wept aloud, and they said to her, we will go back with you to your people. But Naomi said, return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons who would become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband. And even if I thought there was still hope for me and I had another husband tonight and I gave birth to sons, would you wait for them to grow up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters, it's more bitter for me than it is for you, because the Lord's hand has turned against me. And at this they wept aloud again. And then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. And this is where you got to tune in. Look, Naomi says, your sister-in-law is going back to her people and to her gods. Go back with her. But Ruth replied, do not urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. And may the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. And when Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped trying to urge her. And so here's the first thing I want to point out, is that there's nothing wrong with Orpah's decision to go back to her home and to find a new husband. That was what Naomi had told her to do. But since this book is called Ruth, we're going to take a closer look at what Ruth did and what happened as a result. So Naomi has just told Ruth that she's better off to leave her, but Ruth says, no, I'm sticking with you. I'm rocking with you to the end. And so then it goes on and it says, the two women went on until they came to Bethlehem. And when they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred, because remember, Naomi left like 10 years ago. The whole town was stirred, and the women exclaimed, could this be Naomi? Don't call me Naomi, she told them. Call me Mara, because the Almighty had made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me. And so Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, arriving in Bethlehem as the barley harvest was beginning. And so here's what's key here, is Naomi, the name, means pleasant, and Mara, the name, means bitter. And so Naomi has reached this point where she is completely broken. And so when Ruth first makes the decision to stay with Naomi, Naomi is in a broken place. And she actually believes that God has afflicted her. And so Ruth has nothing to gain by going with Naomi at this point. And she has everything to lose. Because if she goes back to Moab, she can have a normal life. She can live comfortably. But at this point, she stays with Naomi because Ruth values Naomi over her own comfortability. And that's going to be key as we keep going with this story. So moving forward, Ruth and Naomi are back in Bethlehem. They got no jobs. They have no husbands. But because of Ruth's decision to stick with Naomi, they now have each other. And so Bethlehem is a farming culture, which means everything, their food, everything surrounds food, and everything food-wise surrounds farming. And so they get back in the middle of a barley harvest. And so Ruth tells her mom, her mother-in-law, she's like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to pick up scraps of food, because they have no other way of getting food. I'm going to go pick up scraps of food behind the people who might drop some while they're harvesting the barley. And so Ruth goes out, she's picking up scraps of grain. And while she's doing this, the field owner that she's in, his name's Boaz, he comes out and he asks the guy who's attending the field workers, and he's like, who is that woman that is picking up grain? The young woman who could be married to anybody. He's like, who's this young woman who's out there scraping grain from behind all these people? And the servant leader tells him everything. He tells him how Ruth left her home to come with Naomi to take care of her when she could have gone back and lived a comfortable life. And so Boaz and Ruth now have this conversation in Ruth chapter 2, if I can get there. In Ruth chapter 2, they have this conversation, and Boaz says, my daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me. Watch the field where the men are harvesting and follow along after the women. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you, and whenever you are thirsty, go get a drink from the water jars that the men have filled. So he's basically saying, you can be here as long as you want. You can do whatever you want. Stay here, pick a grain. At this, she bowed down with her face to the ground, and she asked him, why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner? And Boaz replied, I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother, how you came to live in a land with people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. So Ruth goes home now, and she tells Naomi all these things that happened about her experience, about Boaz and how he came out, treated her like one of his own servants, and gave her all this land to pick grain from, and gave her all this food to go home with. And so Naomi, they have this conversation. It says, her mother-in-law asked, where did you glean today? Where did you work? Blessed be the man who took notice of you. She's like, boy, what boy took notice of you? It says, Ruth told her mother-in-law about the one whose place she had been working. The name of the man I worked with today is Boaz, she said. The Lord bless him, said Naomi to her daughter-in-law. This is key. He, being the Lord, he has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead. She added, this man is our close relative. He is one of our guardian redeemers. So here's what you see here is Ruth's faithfulness to care for her mother-in-law is now bringing about a renewed faith in God and a renewed grateful heart in Naomi. This is the same woman who a chapter before said, the Lord has afflicted me. And now she says, the Lord has not stopped showing kindness to the living and the dead. So now from this point forward, Boaz makes sure that Naomi and Ruth are both taken care of because of Ruth's sacrifice for Naomi, and he knows how much she has sacrificed. So, and then eventually, actually, Boaz and Ruth get married through a complicated Old Testament, interesting kind of way. And I would encourage you to read chapters 3 and 4 if you want to learn about it, because it's a really interesting story. But Boaz basically marries Ruth, and they get married, and then they have a son. And actually, Naomi is the one who raises and cares for this son. And so in Ruth chapter 4, at the conclusion of this story, it says, Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And when he made love to her, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. The women said to Naomi, praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a guardian redeemer. May he become famous through Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth. Then Naomi took the child in her arms and she cared for him. And the women living there said, Naomi has a son. And they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. So here's where it just gets absolutely wild. So because of Ruth's faithfulness and the one decision that she made to stick with Naomi when she could have gone another way, to be more comfortable, to live a more comfortable life, and she decided to stick with Naomi, because of that, Naomi's faith is restored in God. Her gratefulness is restored. She is also blessed to raise a son. And now the same women who she had told earlier that God had afflicted her are now the same women who are marveling at God's faithfulness to her. So not just Naomi gains a new perspective on God, but all of the women, all of the people in Bethlehem gain a new perspective on God through the faithfulness of Ruth to Naomi and what God does with that faithfulness. And the baby that she raises, Ruth's baby, if it couldn't get any better, is in the direct line of Jesus. And so Ruth's investment takes Naomi from a place of brokenness to a place of blessing. And it actually pulls Ruth into that blessing as well. So here's the question that I want us to ask with Ruth's story. How could Ruth have known that her one decision to stand alongside Naomi in her time of need would have such a grand impact on both of their lives? She couldn't. She didn't make the decision to stay with Naomi because of all the things that she thought she would get from it. She made the decision to stay with Naomi because she loved her and because she didn't want to see her go through life alone, especially when she was the most broken. So let's get practical. Who in your life can you stay with during this time? And when I say stay with, I don't mean you're going to sleep over at their house, because right now, obviously, that's not an option. I mean, like, who are you going to rock with? Who are you going to reach out to in a text, in a phone call, in a FaceTime, in a Skype, or whatever you guys use these days, house party, and just let them know that you're thinking about them, you care about them, you're praying for them. Ask them what you can pray for. Ask them what they're doing. Ask them what they're watching on TV. Just let them know that somebody cares. And here's where it gets even more interesting is, who around you needs someone to be there for them in this time? Who do you know that doesn't have many friends, or that is extra broken and feeling some kind of extra loss in this season? Who do you know who's broken? And are you willing to reach out to them, to let them know that someone cares about them, someone's going to rock with them, someone's going to stay with them through this time? Because while you can't know the impact that you could have on their lives, God does. And his desire is for you to share hope and life with the people around you. Would you pray with me? God, you are worthy. You are great. And this story tells just a story of your faithfulness and of the glory that comes from obedience to you and of being loyal to others. And I ask for each person who's watching this morning that you would give them the strength to reach out to the people who need to be reached out to, the people who need to be served, just by being let know that someone is going to rock with them, someone's going to stay with them during this time. I pray for vision to see who those people are, and I pray for courage to step through into the opportunities that you provide for every student. I ask these things in Jesus' name, amen. And just as a final reminder, turn in those videos today. God bless Flower City Work Camp.
Hey, thanks John so much for bringing that word. Hope it was an encouragement today on this beautiful Wednesday morning. Guys, the Flower City 2020, get those challenges in. We want to see your videos because tonight they're going on the Wednesday night stream. So get those, upload those to the link below. One thing I forgot to do was bring my keys, so I am stuck outside my apartment complex, and I'm going to have to get in somehow. But hopefully by tonight I'll be inside, indoors, safe and sound, tuning in with you guys. So peace be with you all. Have a great Wednesday.